Hi, this is Olanrewaju Eson. My full name is Olanrewaju Olushola Eson. I was the first child of Benjamin Olatunji and Florence Adeshola Eson, who was born in Nigeria. Of course, I say the first child because my older brother, Segun Eson, was born in Canada. My immediate older brother, Boyega Eson, was also born in Canada. And I was the first Nigerian child born. So I consider myself wholly Nigerian, first true Nigerian child of the Eson family. Eson is spelled E-S-A-N, if anybody is wondering. However, we are starting this video series, which you're going to be hearing for a while, based on my children's desire to know more about the Nigerian heritage. I will not call it fully Nigerian heritage because for most Americans, Nigeria seems like a homogeneous country. But in reality, Nigeria has about 500 different ethnic groups. My ethnic group, which is the Yoruba ethnic group, probably has the largest percentage, about 17%, even though you may hear statistics saying that the Hausa and Fulani contains 20%, but that's a combination of two ethnic groups. So therefore, as a total amount of the population of Nigeria, which is close to 200 million, this is really not a lot. However, the Yoruba ethnic group is present in Cameroon, is present in Togo, is present in Nigeria, is present in the Republic of Benin, is present in Cuba, is present in Brazil, is present in Haiti, is present in Jamaica, and is present in the United States as well as in England, and therefore has spread in different parts of the world in large amounts. And of course, probably there's a Yoruba person in almost every single country in the world. However, I digress. The first part of this video is going to talk about the differences between schooling in the Western world as well as schooling in Nigeria. I have not lived in Nigeria now for over 25 years. However, I'm giving you my experience from when I schooled there over 25 years ago. Schooling in Nigeria is different from the Western world in the sense that everybody who's at least at the middle class level understands the importance of going to school. One of the disadvantages in the United States is that the availability of elementary, middle school, and high school without anybody having to walk to school or having to have a uniform to go to school makes people take school for granted. However, education is taken very seriously once the opportunity is allowed, especially among the Yoruba culture. And essentially, an education is started at the elementary level. However, one of the major advantages that Nigeria, or especially in the Yoruba part of Nigeria, has a different education is that education starts as early as 2 or 3 years of age. One of the reasons why the edge that the United States have had over education has not been sustained is by the ignoring of preschool education. So preschool education is taken for granted, especially in places like Lagos and Ibadan, where people learn already at what they call nursery schools on how to be able to read and sign their alphabets, and before they actually end up in primary school, which is our equivalent to elementary school here in the United States. So often enough, using myself as an example, I went to a Rosita nursery school, which at that time was in Oduono, which was in Ibadan. And at the time, once I went to Rosita, I was at least, based on recollection, very advanced and was able to learn my 1, 2, 3s and my ABCs. And in a short time, the amount of knowledge that the nursery school, which will have been equivalent to a daycare here, was able to do for me had reached a limit. And therefore, I was sent to a private Roman Catholic school called Sacred Heart. And therefore, I started at kindergarten 1, kindergarten 2. So that means I did 2 years of kindergarten. And people always wonder why you did 2 years of kindergarten. Because at the time I went to school, I probably was only about 3 years old. So that means in Nigeria, depending on the person's aptitude, you could start school extremely early. And this is why it is no surprise that many of us graduate university at much earlier ages than you will expect in the United States. So for me, because of my aptitude and my ability to be able to master what was being taught, I went to elementary school very early. The system has changed since I left, and now they have a system which is called GSS and SS1 and SS2. But I'm going to go back as a default to how the system was when I was in school. So you started with the primary school education, which ended at primary 5. You had an option of doing an additional year, which was primary 6. And at that time, I did kindergarten 1 and kindergarten 2 because I was extremely young. And I went to a Roman Catholic school called Sacred Heart private school at that time. It was on a road called Ring Road in Ibadan, and it was one of the premier schools. At the time, the Archbishop of the diocese was a Bishop Alaba Job, and one of the people who ran the school was a actual Caucasian what we call mother or nun. She was called Mother Michael. And there was another very popular nun. She was Sister Margaret. However, they did have a traditional principal who was Nigerian. If I remember, I think her name was Mrs. Ayola, or she may have been the one after that. So in kindergarten 1 and kindergarten 2, I met many of my friends who are my friends some up to today. An example is Tokunbo Olomu, who became a successful architect and successful businessman in England, who my children are aware of, and we are still friends up until today. And because of the nature of the schools, we came together very early, singing songs at the beginning of the school. So they used to call it assembly. So during the assemblies, we'll sing songs like, "Oh, you little naughty fly, if I beat you, you will die. If I beat you, you will die. Oh, I don't care what mommy say, don't care what daddy say. Oh, little naughty fly." So I used to sing this song to my daughter, Olufoyinsola, and I learned it from when I was in primary school. And of course, we learned at that time to say the pledge. We learned to know the national anthem. So that means by the age of 3, many of us were already familiar with the national anthem and the pledge of the Nigerian government. However, I will say that I got interrupted by my son, Mayakun. I will say that at that time, our thinking towards education was this is what our parents wanted us to do, and we just did it. There was no clear-cut intent on what we were going to be in the future. We just went to school because that's what everybody else did. And by the time I finished kindergarten 1, kindergarten 2, and I went to primary 1, because now I was kind of age, I probably still was about maybe 4 and barely 5 years old. 4 years old by the time I started primary 1. So that by the time I finished primary 5, I did what was called the National Common Entrance, and I was only about 9 years old. So I entered from 9 years old into what we'll call middle school / high school. And I went to high school over 300 miles from home. Now, people will say, wow, at 9 years old, you left home. However, this is very common in the British system where we went to what we call boarding schools. Boarding schools are BOARDING. And in these boarding schools, students came from all over the country, from the north, from the south, and it's still practiced presently, especially in the United Kingdom, where people go to boarding schools. In the boarding schools, they were divided into houses. At the time I was there were 4 houses. There was one called Independence House, National House, Unity House, and Schoolhouse. I was in Schoolhouse. And Schoolhouse used to win a lot of competitions. So while we were in the boarding house, we had sport athletic competitions between ourselves. We had debating competitions between ourselves. And just like people have seen in Harry Potter movies, they were actually big competitions. And this engendered a sense of togetherness. And that's why for many people, they do not know that this is why a lot of Nigerians become very close, because they become very close friends from attending boarding school together. And the experiences that you are seeing in Harry Potter, which is fiction, is actually real because it actually occurs in many parts of the world. And this makes it very different from the American level of education. The American level of education encourages people to go to schools in which they live from home and they go back home from home. So therefore, there's a the amount of relationship they can develop with making friends becomes less. And that is why often enough they leave high school and they can barely count the amount of friends they have on their hands. But for us, by the time we leave high school, we probably have close to about 40 to 50 very close friends. And this makes the major difference between American education and Nigerian education. And I'm going to stop at this junction because I've described the elementary, middle school, and high school system as is different from the American system. And one of the things which I will also mention is that we learn many subjects apart from, just like we do here in the United States, math, English, economics, government, and here the geography may be called earth science, and the mathematics is divided into algebra, geometry, but it's basic the amount, but it is taught in a slightly different way. There's a lot of leeway given in the American system on educational system to be developed by each district. In Nigeria, there's a standard educational text. So therefore, everybody virtually learns very things similar to each other, irrespective of the part of the country you are in. However, the teachers have the leeway on how to be able to convey that information in any different way that they will. So therefore, you may go to a Roman Catholic school like mine, and you may learn maybe a certain amount of maths in Form 4, which may be slightly ahead than if you went to a Montessori system of education, which still uses the standard text, but teaches it slightly differently. But the bottom line is that the text is about the same irrespective of wherever you go to country. So therefore, the district variation is not as much as it will be in the United States compared to Nigeria. So therefore, you could be here and graduate from a school in Compton in California, and you may not be able to read and write. Meanwhile, you could graduate from the same place in Connecticut, and you are very adept at doing the same thing. And that's because since the district sets the standards, then therefore it's very difficult to be able to create a standard education all over in the United States. However, people have fought against the exams that was instituted by the Bush regime, which is the standardized assessments. However, the standardized assessment is trying to bring the system closer to what happens in other parts of the world and challenges the teachers to be able to meet certain goals during the educational system. And in a way, it is not that bad. The problem is the pressure to make people pass the test. But in the Nigerian system, there was no need to teach people towards the test. As long as you covered the material that was that was standardized, any good student will do very well in what was called the National Common Entrance. So really, you didn't have to teach towards the test. But in the United States, you have to teach towards the test because the rate in which education is being taught at different levels so varies that somebody may be getting a substandard education in California and getting a more superior education in New York, but since every district is allowed to be able to regulate it, that is why they end up fearing standardized testing where there should not be no fear. Second thing which also is important is that education as well as sports is also regarded very important. So even at the primary level, which is the elementary level, as well as the middle school level, which is equivalent in America, we also had houses. We had parent house, school house, and we also contributed. We also had long jump, high jump, and everybody was encouraged to participate in sports. So it wasn't like a gym, which we have in the American level of system. In this system, everybody was compartmented into different houses, and that house was part of the Roman Catholic system, and everybody competed in little things, even if it's just a egg and spoon race or a sack race. But that way, everybody participated in sports. So therefore, you had people who had more well-rounded educations, and therefore they didn't just be some person who spent his whole time in the library so that he could get all the A's and be able to apply to medical school, and he was no real use to the society because he never participated or competed with his classmates, and therefore that individualized type of education was really not as common in the Nigerian system. So you had people who were super brilliant, but they also had the ability to be able to participate in many other extracurricular activities. So therefore, because some at the high school level, there was a lot of boarding school, things like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts were well developed because there was more time to be able to spend in being able to participate with this. So I will end this particular video. This is our first video, and I'm doing it for Durotimi, Mayokun, Shishi, and Foisola. And I know that this is 2020, November 28th, and we will continue this video with additional questions as I answer it. Thank you.